Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to all our online audiences. Good afternoon, Indraneel.
Hi.
Before I introduce you, you are someone who needs no introduction in this room and in the city of Pune. But we are in our first episode of what we call as Bookbar Locals. Locals basically is a concept which we have introduced more as a community celebration. We want to let me take you back a little on a conversation that happened in the cafe. This cafe Bookbar is largely catered to a Gen Z audience, but we see all sorts of people coming here. And cafes are a very interesting point to understand what's happening in the city. You know, if you are attentive, you will really understand the pulse of the city. So I realized that there are so many new people in the city and the culture has changed to what it was. But there is still a resistance to change with some pockets of society. So what we thought was that since while we are doing coffee, books and everything else, I thought it was a very interesting aspect to bring in heritage and make it meet modernity, or what we call as a specialty coffee place. And talk about heritage, talk about how the city has evolved in its culture and where we are heading. So Locals is that IP to celebrate people, celebrate brands, celebrate ideas, celebrate a dish which has shape-shifted Pune in a large way, and to educate people on also accepting what the current trend is and where people are heading, right? So when we started talking, we were like, who should we call as our first guest in our first episode? And it was synonymous to, bring in Chitale Bandhu, a brand which I grew up with, which so many people grew up with, nostalgia. Pune and Chitale, I don't think, like they are now glued forever, right? And with Bakarwadi being the front runner as how I remember it, we were like, best is to get Indraneel, talk about the brand a little, but also talk about his point of view on the culture, on the new age audience, and how the brand communicates to that audience and how people perceive it in that way. So welcome Indraneel.
Thank you.
And welcome everyone. This is going to be a very informal chat, even for our online audience. This is not a business talk, there are no lessons, there is no LinkedIn happening. It is going to be an honest conversation to understand Gen Z, subculture, your pivot, and so on and so forth, right? So first question, have you shut all the shops and come here? As tradition would have
I hope
gotten.
not, given how soon we are away from Diwali that way. But yes, I think that is a cultural shift that we were able to instigate very well, and I think that's one of the changing points in terms of the legacy of Chitale. That
So 1 to 4 was always shut.
It used to be.
It used to be, and no, I know that now it cannot operate that way.
Correct.
But I thought that it is an important point to get right across that.
So in fact, we lobbied very hard recently that real estate is becoming expensive day by day, and it's difficult to make money just operating even 12 hours. So you must have seen that just last week there was a release by the government of Maharashtra that now all retail shops in the state are allowed to open 24 hours.
Yeah, right.
So that way we've been one of the champions in lobbying for that, and I think
Really?
that way I am very happy that the legislation has taken a side towards business.
Right.
So I'm hoping that more businesses exploit that opportunity.
Right. So you were involved in that whole policy making?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great thing. I think we all are going to benefit from it definitely. But I mean, 1 to 4, and somewhere I've heard you talk in other podcasts also that everyone was okay by keeping 1 to 4 open, but the customers were not.
Correct.
When did that change, and how did that reflect in the way you pivoted to the fact that okay, now we are not what we were in the last 20-30 years, and now we are catering to a newer set of audiences, newer policies, newer back-ending processes, newer mindsets, so to speak. And then how does that reflect in how people perceive you as a brand today?
So I think if you see how Pune has transformed since the .com era, we've had the higher number of migration from Pune to outside Pune, especially California and Germany, where the original inhabitants or the next generation of those inhabitants have been able to move out. And they've been displaced by a huge number of population that has come in because of the IT boom. And IT specifically simply because we were always known as an engineering hub, but manufacturing never really created a jobs which were capable at a dollar parity that IT is able to create. So when this population started coming into the city and started making the city their home, they came in with a different set of expectations which were not necessarily tied with how the city functioned till then. And that way those expectations are something that as a consumer brand we have to cater to. So while there was a demand, while there was a brand value that had been there where we were in terms of marketing speak having a good share of voice, the share of voice was always very often with complaint as well that we are not available enough of the time. And when it comes to retail, where we are not looking at very premiumized or luxury retail but more of a consumer brand, availability is the king. So if you are not available, then it's a problem. So when newer neighborhoods started coming in, we started expanding where, till early 2000s, we were probably 8 to 9 franchises in the city. Today we operate 62 franchises just inside the city. So these 62 have all been able to grow because we were available for a longer period of time. And that is possible because the customer was able to do what they wanted to do at their choice. So this shift happened from a seller's market to a buyer's market with this influx of new population. And I think adopting to that was what created a good growth for us.
So it was the customers, so to speak, change in consumption, so to speak, which got you all to want to change it, or was it something which you all pushed and the customer adapted? Because there's always that nuance.
So more of the consumer demand. So not, I would say, in terms of customer consumption changing, but the demand of when the consumer was shopping changed. So if you go at a, say, typical neighborhoods in Pune, which were, say, Deccan Gymkhana or Sarajupet or Sahkar Nagar, which have been around for ages. So the ecosystem there was developed around the businessman, where the houses were close to the marketplace. The people used to come at a certain time of the day to the marketplace, and that way the whole ecosystem moved around it. But when the marketplace has changed and people moved in different directions, the ability to go to the main marketplace and buy shrank down. And this a decade ago was before the quick commerce and the e-commerce revolution happened. So the consumers had no choice but to come to you and buy. So now if they are willing to come to you and you are not willing to sell, then that I believe is not a great business idea to do, unless we want to sell something very luxury, which we were not. So that's where I think that demand change happened, and I think the demand generation existed, we catered to that well, and that is what led to a sustainable growth.
Right. So in terms of the new age customer, okay, now you have, Chitale has been there for a while, okay. Now when I was young, my parents took the decision of buying mithai or buying a bakar badi, usually for festivals or just having something in your house. Today, when there are new people coming into the city, right? It's a new customer, it's a younger customer, right? Who takes the decision today? Do you think there is a shift in the decision maker? Is it, can the brand stand on its own legs for a new person who may not have gotten that transfer of information from families, somebody coming from outside? And is Chitale now just a food brand moving towards that, or is it still kind of having its identity around mithai?
So Pune has always been a center where we've been around for close to 90 years now. So 90 years all we did was, so 80 of those years all we did was sell mithai or sell milk. So that way that resonance exists with the consumer irrespective of who comes and goes. And secondly, that also reflects in the trade, because the trade bets on brands that work. So which is why the supply chain, the trade and the community who sells the product is equally important as the community that buys it. Because they are the ones who facilitate the idea कि जो दिखता है वो बिकता है. So कौन दिखता है becomes very important. And that way the places where क्या दिखता है have changed a lot. So now it's not relevant only to the channel that how many billboards are you doing, how many shop boards are you doing, how many physical retail points do you have, or how many stores do you have. But at a omni-channel basis, how many platforms you are available on, how many avenues are you getting the visibility to your potential customer is all that matters. So that's why the ecosystem play becomes important. I think that is something that you have to keep doing again and
Sorry
again.
to interrupt. Who is your customer? I think because let me talk to you about this cafe. It's a small cafe, but we know our primary customer is Gen Z. Let's classify as at that. So all my communication is going to be targeted around that. Yet keep it open for other people also to have some relatability.
Correct.
Now, because you have been a heritage brand, and today you also need to be relevant, and today you are moving not only just in Pune, you have a national presence, you have an international presence, and somewhere, if I had to ask you that, who is it that you really want to speak to?
See, we are a FMCG company now. Retail is just one part of our business. It's probably contributing about 25-30% of our revenues. So our bigger business comes in through the distribution, and that way that marketplace is still dominated by predominantly the women in the house, because the buying of what comes into a household is something that the women in the household normally end up deciding. So that way they are our prime consumers. Anybody aged from say late 20s going up to 60s could be somebody that we end up selling to. Now, we don't look at a consumer particularly only from a brand recall perspective, because the brand recall changes as the environment changes. So you could have a different consumer in a retail environment where a Chitale Bandhu store will have a different consumer. But when it comes to a quick com environment or a modern trade environment, we are part of the bag. There are multiple brands who are doing multiple products, and even the same category will have different brands doing it. So every brand has a certain champion products that have a high recall, and then the category management becomes very important. So what we look at now is that what categories do we play in what markets we are available in. So we will play a very different game for a consumer in a supermarket versus a consumer on a quick com platform versus a consumer who's coming to a store. And that way somebody who's going to be buying that product with a certain sense of nostalgia abroad, where the shortage itself is a big driver to consume a lot more product. So that's why the consumers change as per the basket. What remains as a brand, what remains as a category, and who do we appeal to in what basket is something that we have to decide as a brand manager.
Right. But your communication, does it mean that you are changing your So for example, let me say that you have changed so many things with respect to innovation, back end, more machines, automation, trying to increase output and productivity.
Correct.
From a front ending where people are consuming your advertising or on your Instagram or social media or your packaging, or you have created house of brands, right? So for example, Binge Bar is something which came as an innovation, right? I was having a chat with someone younger to me, and she was like, oh, Binge Bar is easy. It's available, fast commerce, I can have access to it.
Correct.
And it's a cool product to have, it's healthy also. So from that lens, have you all divided the communication as Chitale into its different audiences, or do you still, there is a uniformity in it with the changing times? Because I am not too sure of how Chitale communicates abroad. I am only talking from a Pune culture, traditional, rooted. As you said, the lady in the house will take the decisions for buying your product. It still has a festivity, nostalgia, gifting aspect. So how does communication change? Have you all had some thought process on that?
But so I'll again come back to the point that it's not the lady in the house who's determining what goes through a Chitale store. She'll also very often be the one determining what happens through a DMart, for example. And more often she's rather a more important customer, because she's coming in with a budget of say wanting to spend 500 rupees, and amidst the 2000 brands that could be present at a modern trade outlet, I have to make space there. So that's why what I communicate there is very different to what I communicate to a consumer who's coming with the brand already known. Say when they walk into a Chitale store in Pune, the anchoring of what to expect there is already set. Now my job there is to sell range, show my variety, show many new products which eventually could be FMCG worthy in terms of scale, but then it is about creating an array of experiences there. When it comes to modern trade, it is about selling at scale and creating a good market share in that category. Now when it comes to salty snacks again, if you see where Bakarodi, for example, as a category is, so it's a 60,000 crore market in India, which is supposed to become a 1,30,000 crore market in under a decade. So more than twice. In that, 80% of the sale is under 20 rupees. And Chitale was always a 100 rupee player. So when we came into a 20 rupee category play, the avenue where we were being sold was itself very different. And the consumer, or as they say, the Chakna category consumer was very different to what an average Chitale consumer was. So how do we make space there was again a big challenge. So that's why we use sports as an anchor there. We use culture as an anchor for the store division. We use nostalgia as an angle for the abroad customers. Then it comes to specialized avenues where it could be events or it could be some campaigns that we do, like what we are doing with Jalsa right now, where the gifting as an idea is being explored by Chitale Bandhu, where what you're gifting to somebody needs to showcase what you stand for as well, right? And something that makes the person receiving the gift feel good about it as well.
Right.
So how do we communicate that is a very separate activity to what Binge Bar talks, to what Salty Snacks does, to what a store talks. And then that targeting is very different. And what remains common is the Chitale value system, where quality is one of the big factors and then the heritage is the other factor.
So y'all have actually divided the entire market into its small bucket, so to speak, and tailored every communication to that particular bucket, yet thread the whole heritage and quality ecosystem, value system, as you said.
Because what we've seen is that, say, one of the inputs that came in from our retailer. So when we launched Binge Bar, we didn't put Chitale Bandhu at all on top of it because the advertising language was very different. But then the retailers told us that, it's great, the product's nice, but it takes efforts for us to sell it. Why don't you make it Chitale Bandhu Binge Bar? Because the ability to get that packet picked up in a third party environment will be better. So that created a good impact for us. What we realized with that is that way, you need to keep creating those differential communication avenues all the time, and then the consumer picks up. If the pickup happens for the first time, then the merit of the product comes into the picture. When the merit of the product is something that is exhibited for that price point, then the consumer comes back. Right. And that is actually when you make money.
Right.
So which in today's e-commerce speak is the lifetime value of a consumer. So how do you end up billing the same product again and again to the consumer is when you actually make money with the consumer. So it's not always about the first sale, it is about getting noticed first.
Right. So let's talk about the younger generation, Gen Z. Okay, now Binge Bar can be catered to that because this generation is health conscious, calorie conscious. Is the product Instagram worthy? There is a social angle to it, and this is something which earlier businesses or legacy businesses never thought of. They were like, okay, you come to my store and consume it, and we are okay with it. But how do you, firstly, what is your take on this new generation which is actually changing the culture of Pune? Because now, look at a coffee shop like this. Coffee is becoming a more discoverability part of it. Tea was largely dominant, but now you have youngsters wanting to explore coffee. They are meeting in a place like this, which is like the future. So this crowd, does that come into your research? Product, how do you communicate to them, and what is your personal take on how Pune is changing with this?
See, if you ask me where our research
and
goes,
this could be a personal opinion also, this need not necessarily.
I tell you where our research goes is that we even consider how we want to get into baby food category.
Really?
Because the point is that we already do milk very well, we know how to process milk and milk powder very well. That's something that we do all the time. And that way now the brand ecosystem is that where do we start getting noticed to the consumer is where the baby food now becoming a big category. So that or the protein powders, the whey protein is something that as a category we are exploiting even further in our research as well. But that's why what we see is that there is a journey of a consumer that happens subconsciously. The more intentional you become with that journey of a consumer, the more likely you are able to extract a great lifetime value from that consumer. And that way there has never been a more empowered generation than Gen Z right now. And Gen Alphas will be coming in with a even further more empowered but even more multipolar dynamics than what it is today. Because people like you and me, we grew up with the idea that anything that happens in the US was the best thing that happens.
Right.
So adopting that was a great thing for us. So we saw many of the quick serve chains come in from the US and they were really popular for us to go to as young people. But that's not the objective of any person now coming to the city. And then, you know, a city like Pune where you have student population who spend their exploratory days inside the city, a lot can be shaped up. So that's why what do we do with the idea that we get noticed by this population where eventually their buying patterns will evolve, but a trust for the brand is something that we are able to establish is our prime priority. And that's why the touch points are something that we keep thinking about.
Right. But fast commerce integration is a big part for you now, because say for example, there's a lot of protein bar consumption with the younger lot.
Correct.
Right? Chips. Protein has become like the new thing which people talk about, right? And people have accessibility. We were talking a little earlier and you said that the most important part for today's younger generation is convenience, right? Whatever is convenient is being consumed, you know, everything is fast. So does that, are you putting all eggs in that basket to cater to this new generation, or you are neutral? You know what, we are all across the marketplace, omni-channel distribution, and we are not really focusing on something different for the younger lot who is, like for example, can bakarwadi be as accessible as a chip packet or a protein bar? Like, you know, I'm hungry, I'm on the road, blink it, get a bakarwadi or get a binge bar, you know,
Precisely.
something like that. And is that shifting?
It's natural, and I think it's a great progression that has happened to the retail industry, where e-commerce could not fill that gap very well. Because see, what happens with food is that the cost of transport sometimes is more than the cost of the product itself. So unless you have a hyper-local mechanism of how you get about with your deliveries, it is very difficult to service the consumer at the right price. Thanks to quick commerce and the congestion and the urbanization, all of this is only going to grow. So if you're not present on those avenues where you are available under 10 minutes, then you as a brand are doing injustice to your own brand. But along with that, what I would also say, and I think it's a reflection of how we are as a society, is that by design as a society, we are still very rooted in our tradition.
Is that Pune?
Not just Pune. I think, I'll give you a very recent indicator which was about the Kumbh Mela that happened in Varanasi. We had about 60 crore visitors there, what the official data says. So for a 150 crore population country, where we have about close to 40% population under 30, so we are assuming that at least 20 to 30% of those came. So that way the younger generation is not averse to culture, it is about how it is being marketed to them very well. And I think that was a reflection that people will consume. And that's also the reason we see that, you know, when we automated manufacturing of modak, we were always worried that, you know, who's going to buy so many modak. But we sell probably 15 times more modak than what we sold about in 2017-18 now, simply because with technology, automation and availability, we are available in 65 countries and every state in the country as well. So I had no idea that somebody in Kolkata would be buying modaks, but they buy. So that's why I think we are sometimes overcritical of Gen Z in terms of what they want to buy. They are still very rooted. What they want is convenience more importantly than just too much diversity. And that's where, you know, I think repeated visibility becomes more important.
So they are, what we always like to conclude is that the why is equally important as the what.
Absolutely.
You know, people, I think this generation likes data first. They trust data more than people. And you know, it's kind of shifted, like, you know, there's so much availability of data. So for a brand now, you know, putting the right message, putting the right data metrics, how much calorie is communicating and the platforms for communication. So how does this translate into your social media? Does your social media reflect this, or maybe the way you all are sponsoring festivals and getting into music festivals? You just spoke that you were going somewhere after this, right? That creates perception, right? Is it intentionally done for the younger lot, or is it like you all are taking a brand stance? And how much of it is your personal extension of like, you know, sometimes the guy who's running it, the personality sometimes spills, right? And you have a heritage to also maintain the rooted part. But sometimes you know that, you know, this is something which I feel as a gut feel. This is my personality. I would have this gotten into the culture. Does that also get into the business operations?
I think it does. And Then again, food as a medium is all emotion driven. So the reason we see so much of health chatter around food, but not enough people actually looking or being healthy, or at times sticking to a diet but not mentally feeling great about it also, is a lot to do with the emotion aspect of it. So we sometimes give less importance to the idea of how emotionally a brand connects to a consumer, and that's where all of these points become very important. So one of the examples was that, say, 15 years ago or 20 years ago, even if we automated something, we would not tell our consumers for at least 2 years before actually declaring that this has been automated, because a typical consumer would be that आता ती पूर्वीसारखी लागत नाही.
Right.
And that used to be a norm, that if you go to Deccan Gymkhana, for example, and you see some of the older consumers who've been around for 4-5 decades, so they'll have an opinion that we don't simply like it, and it's the emotional aspect of it also, which sometimes as technical people we don't give enough importance to. But then post COVID, the emphasis of automation just changed, and we saw that our packaging business, which was a very exploratory business at that time, just shot off. And our store business, which was the conventional no-to business, was shut for almost 6 months because nothing was allowed to be open. So we still grew 20% because we were available where the consumer wanted us to be. And that is the time when I actually went live once from our factory on the floor itself, showcasing how the hygiene is being followed, how the people are well sanitized, how it is the decorum is being maintained, how automated we are. So suddenly the demand of the consumer changed from the idea of a halwai where it's everything a very greasy, sweaty environment, to something which is very high tech in design and visibility, but serving that same traditional emotion. So that people could reconnect very well with those display and social media and the communication around it. So we keep doing more of it. So that's why I think communication of what you stand for, what you want to showcase to your consumer, and that way how does it play out is all going to be very important. And unless as brands you don't set the narrative, it becomes difficult for you to create trends in the future. So that's what we are betting onto very heavily.
Right. And where do you think I mean, it's an open-ended question, like you've seen Pune change, and we all have, but now where do you think it's going? Is quick commerce going to take over retail in terms of physical stores? Do you think that the shift is going to happen?
I don't think so.
No?
So if you see, and I want to draw a corollary to it, is in terms of how the dynamics of the entertainment industry have changed. So the people going to movies have gone down because now it's available with OTT and so many platforms. But the live events which are happening, they are full and always fully booked out. So be it the traditional Maharashtrian Natak, traditional events, like say we sponsor one event called Folk Akhyan, which is just talking about folk songs of Maharashtra in a very modern environment, but it's full. I mean, sometimes we have to we get awkward saying no to people who are requesting passes for it. So all of these events are being full is because people's idea of expectations or environment have changed. So physical experience is going to be a lot more in demand, and convenience is something that will come in through the digital ecosystem. So that's why who will possibly a losing end of it is the multi-brand points which are on retail. And if you see even developed economies like China, which are subjected to prolonged lockdowns, the share of e-commerce in the total GDP is still about 25%. It went up to 30% during peak lockdowns, but corrected to about 20 to 25%. The US, the share of GDP to digital business is about 14 to 15%. India is just about 4-5%. So we'll grow as a country, we'll be more urbanized and more chaotic as a country. So it will go to about 10 to 12%. But the physical experience that a brand delivers is something that's not going to go anywhere. It's about how the brands innovate and create that distinction between what's physical and how does it translate into digital. And I think the more brands think about it, I think the more there is to be reaped out of it as an advantage of the platforms. And you're cutting down the middleman, so it is even better that way.
Interesting. So, how does it feel, like, if you're walking on the road and someone recognizes you, ki, "Arey, Indraneel, Chitale," it's an emotion, right? It's not just a product anymore, because, there is a sense of nostalgia. So, there is a sense of empowerment also, right? Is that a big responsibility I know it's a business responsibility, but from a like how you've grown as a person, like and you meet someone who has his family and himself associated with the brand and with you, like how do you have that conversation? Like does it feel empowered, so to speak?
Well, I think I'm still making peace with feeling empowered about it. I think there is a challenge that comes inherently with any legacy business, especially which is 4, 5, 6 generations down the line, where if your family name and your business name is the same, there is a weight of legacy that comes to you irrespective of what your choice or profession is. So I could very well be a doctor and I would still be recognized with that connection. Ki, how are you related there? So that way, that is a mental note that I have to be aware of whenever I am in public. And the reason I laughed was that I always hope nobody recognizes me. So that's always better, because I think anonymity in today's times is far important.
In a place like
but
Pune, you will
that's not a luxury I enjoy.
Happen.
But I do make it a point that whenever that happens, people have a connection that is very strong with the brand, and particularly because of our roots, which start with the farmer. So I end up meeting a lot of people whose family started with 2 buffaloes or 3 buffaloes and went on to 30 buffaloes, 300 buffaloes, and they still supply milk for 50, 60 years to us. So somebody at that stature where that person's grandfather and my grandfather possibly were contemporaries in business, because they were all in it together, to a point where now I don't necessarily need to look at where the supply is coming from as much as how the supply is coming from, but the impact of the shared economy. So that's why that weight is something that is great to have. It is something that makes you mindful about how you want to conduct yourself in public, and then you need to see that it's a passing of the baton. So how do you maintain what's been given to you, improve if possible, and then hand it over to the next one generation, where that legacy is something that you need to preserve. So you are just a time stamp in that entire legacy which is going to outlive you. So that's why I don't take it too seriously beyond the point of acknowledging it.
So let's also do one thing. Let's bring in the audience also.
Sure.
Before we started this conversation, we were discussing about he rightfully introduced the word Samvad, which is a discussion. Like we wanted to have more and more of people coming and talking about this whole topic about Pune culture, new age audiences, and of course the brand. So if anyone has any specific question, we can have a discussion about it, and then we can move back to some questions which I have. Floor is open. Anyone has any specific things you want to ask?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
So actually, very nice to see you basically, because Chitale is not just your brand; it becomes brand for every food. And whenever I work in IT, so there are many customers who visit my company, or whenever I go to abroad, we make it a point that we gift something which is made from Chitale.
Correct.
So and everybody likes it, but there are some feedbacks like sometimes it is too sweet, sometimes it is too hot. So do you have any plans to modify something so that even foreigners would like to? They would enjoy the taste of it. I mean, I saw that there are some who really tell that please next time when you get Bakarwadi for us or something.
No, I fully agree with you, and I think firstly thank you, because you are a brand ambassador that we truly cherish, because that way you represent the brand in geographies and customers we never get to know about. And I think it's true in terms of the feedback that the palate is something that is not necessarily known to a consumer, and it is an acquired taste. So how do we set expectations for the consumer becomes a lot more important than just modifying it all the time. What we've seen is that sometimes instead of modifying, there is a value for authenticity, but it needs to reflect in the communication of what's to be expected. And to give you an example around this, if we go to buy a scotch from Scotland, every packet will have a description of what to expect on that packet. Similarly, if you end up buying some macarons from France, those flavors and the details of how it was done, or say baklava from Istanbul, where I visited one company that has been around since 1800s. So they will talk about what to expect out of it. So that we've never figured out in terms of communication very well till recent times. So it was just last year that when we got into the shelves of supermarket, where the consumer was not just Indian but people from other nationalities or the ethnic locals there as well, was the one who buying. And how do we make a sale there to that consumer was when all of these questions came into the picture. So right now, maybe we are too small in terms of our global outreach. So we have not thought about whether to change our product palette too much. But what we want to do is communicate more about what to expect from the palette. When those expectations are set, I think the first generation of consumers will adopt. Whenever we probably want to take a next step around it, that is when we will probably evolve further. And why I back this logic is because, if you see UK right now, the most popular dish there is chicken tikka masala. Or people are getting acquainted with Indian cuisine now with the region. Like previously, all Indian cuisine was always about paneer butter masala or chicken tikka. Now there is a South Indian speciality that comes. There is a Maharashtrian speciality that comes. So we want to play out to that authenticity right now, then try to do something which is, hyper localizing. Whenever that plateau hits is probably when we'll do the next job of localizing, which is what say chains like McDonald's do, where they have those country specific versions of certain products and standard products along with it.
But just to pick up from here, do you think this whole thing of, especially for the younger conscious audience, that sweet and calories, does that play somewhere? Have you all thought of doing some innovation? Because so many people today is like, I don't want to eat sweet. Like for example, if I have to eat this, I may not eat this because I usually don't eat sweet. But if I'm informed, or if there is something which is like the zero ice creams which came, or the 10 calorie or whatever.
Correct.
Sugar free, does that also feature in your scheme of things?
So the reason we created the M Square brand was the same, because what we realized is that the existing consumer at Chitale Bandhu is not necessarily inclined to eat healthy. So we tried the idea of sugar reduction every year, where there was a FSSAI mandate saying that you must reduce sugar every year. But when it crossed
is that a mandate?
That used to be say 2016 to 19. And every year we reduce the sugar as per the mandate, but then consumer complaints came and said that we are diabetics, we plan our entire meal around the idea that this amba barfi is what we want to eat. Now if you want to change the palate of that is not something that we want to accept, so rather you keep the original. So that's when we realized that probably the consumer who's actually going to eat a no added sugar product is very different than the conventional consumer who's eating a amba barfi. So how do we sell that range is where M Square, which stands for mindful and mouthful, came into the picture. So now that will have a range of products which is no added sugar. It will be low GCI. It will not shoot your insulin. So we have the data to verify it with labs outside as well to showcase that there will be no insulin spike that will come. Or it will have gluten-free products, it will have keto-friendly products. So that consumer is very different, and the marketplace for it is also very different. So average walk-in at a Chitale store is not buying that product at all. But a consumer who's researching online for say sugar-free son papdi, they'll end up seeing us first there. So that is a sale we want to make in an environment which we don't know right now, and that's where we are trying to appeal with a different brand story there.
So was that a hard truth when you said that my average customer does not eat healthy?
But it is a reality. I think we all need to accept. I think if all of that was not the case, then we probably would have seen a drop in sales of all of the consumer goods. And I think sometimes what we forget is that, at a country level, we are still very malnourished as a country. Our access to protein is the lowest in the world for this size of population. And because we are predominantly vegetarian, further to it, where the evolution from farming to industrial to IT jobs has been just 50 years. The diet has not changed progressively at all for us. So I think it will take time before people realize what lifestyle they want to adopt to. And I think with the lifespan increasing, there is going to be a big awareness drive that will happen for people in their 40s who will start actually consuming better. So the current 20-year-olds are subsidized by somebody else. The 30-year-olds are the ones who are making the decisions for themselves about where they want to be, and the 40-year-olds are the ones who are the informed choices.
Right.
So you appeal to different people at different stages, and what appeals to them there is very different.
Right. So that's why you created this sub-brand which catered for this audience.
Absolutely.
But the distribution, is it actually for a younger audience, or it's just for audiences who are aware of eating consciously? Let's say. Let's use the word conscious.
So right now the the reality is that the people eating less sugar are actually the ones who are past 50, because they are the ones who are detected and they are conscious about it.
But sorry to interrupt, but isn't that the case with the younger lot also? Because I meet so many people
Not
who are
effectively.
so conscious today.
So that's a very small spectrum in a very small area. So would this be true if you go to some other neighborhood of Pune? Is not something that is true. So we have to see the per capita income statistics of it. So I'm a big fan of economics, so sometimes I can be overbearing on it. So please excuse me for it. But as a $2,500, $3,000 per capita income country, the disparity of choice is very high in our country. So what we are looking in certain neighborhoods in the big 5 million plus cities is a very small view of what India is consuming. So as say Kishore Biyani, who is a very veteran in our industry, says that there is India and there is Bharat. So Bharat is consuming very differently than India, and we can't base what Bharat consumes based on what India is consuming.
But
So we have to create opportunities for both.
I agree, but today when you actually take a macro stance on, okay, I want to change the culture in terms of how I'm offering my products, while I want to make it conscious eating, even in mithai, right? Like how everyone changed bottling. PET came because there was a huge push. People, chips for example,
Correct.
The whole back-ending process they had to innovate. Even all your beverages, your giants, right? They all came to a point where the government also came into play, wherein you all need to make conscious products. You all can't just go haywire and just because you want to make profit affect the collateral damage was so bigger than what profits they were earning, right? So simple thing like health, and today we are, I think, moving towards a healthier, more conscious, especially with the youth. I mean, I buy a point of only a small pocket of society is like that, and Bharat consumes differently. But generally, to be more conscious about what you're offering, healthier products, does that come in the business part of it? Does that come in, okay, at some point I'll need to also promote this culture personally as an extension, while I know that the business has largely operated on something else?
Yeah, I mean,
or we are too soon to have that.
If we don't set the trend ourselves, then we are letting the disruption being created by somebody else. So, and I'll tell you where my experience around is that I was once invited to go to a conference which was organized by the Vegan Foundation, and that was a dairy player. Why am I going there? Created a huge furor around the industry itself, because they were of the opinion that this is anti-farmer.
Right.
So I said that if dairy brands are not offering a vegan option to consumers, some other brand is going to consume the space for us. So we need to first understand what the point around it is. And I think the movement has matured since then, where I think the people who are lactose intolerant, who are vegan, and who are dairy free, and who are okay with dairy are all coexisting very well. So now if that avenue for our consumers was not created by us, where we have a dairy free or a lactose free option inside our product range, that consumer was going somewhere else, and we would have never known for that. Has that consumer grown at a CAGR which is exponential? No, it's not. But then has that consumer been retained? We've done that.
Right.
So right now we are in that transition phase where many of these offshoots, some of them will grow, some of them will die, and some of them will remain hyped up with certain agendas as well. So that's why we have to be wary that what positions do we create as a brand, and how hard we are about it, and how we let consumers be empowered about the choice. So I believe in empowerment rather than forceful rejection or acceptance.
Right.
So creating choices is what we have to do as consumer,
Right.
as consumer brands.
Health part did not affect too much. Like for example, Amba Barfi. Are you tempted to every year say we have reduced 10% sugar, or we have done something else, and then position it as, okay, now our Amba Barfi is healthier? I mean, I don't want to say it is non-healthy. I have no opinion on it, but I'm just talking from a lens of culture and in terms of how people are consuming. Like, because everyone, say for example, someone who's going to the gym, who is wanting to cut calories or is counting calories, right? Still wants sweet is a very personal thing,
Important
right?
thing.
Everyone misses sweet or crave sweet when they are actually in a calorie deficit, right? But if I have an option of having an Amba Barfi which is 50 calories and which has something interesting as a ingredient in it, where I know that I'm not guilty of eating it.
Correct.
Taste bhi hai, health bhi hai, something like that.
Yeah.
Does that feature anywhere, or are you?
Of course.
It does.
It does, and it is a conscious choice that we are doing as a brand. because that way, so there is this category where we say healthy, and there is an absolute term of what is healthy. Like you want your PUFA profile to be something, MUFA profile to be something, your total cholesterol, your trans fats to be something. Those factors affect a 100 rupee consumer, they don't affect a 10 rupee consumer. So should we create that value proposition at a 10 rupees? We shouldn't. But a 100 rupee, for sure we should be doing that. Along with that, better for you is a category that's growing faster than what would we say is as healthy. Like we make products in groundnut refined oil. The majority of the market does it in palm oil. Now groundnut refined oil is what we say is the olive oil of India, because firstly it's an indigenous product, secondly it is trans fat free, it's got a much better cholesterol profile. So we know for a fact that people who are conscious about what comes home are going to prefer what is in groundnut oil over palm oil. So is that a category we can capture? Now we capture that because we are known that way for that, and our consumer trusts us that this is the ingredient quality that is coming there. So that transition will eventually happen where better for you will move to healthy.
But will you?
That is the one we want to capture.
Will you take thought leadership on the fact that, you know what, okay, we use this. We use, we don't use palm oil
So our
as
package
a like informing people that, you know what, we are differentiated from other mithai.
And that's precisely the language. Huh? So firstly we started saying that made in groundnut oil. Nobody really cared. When we put in no palm oil, it started flying off. So communication of what is there and what is not there is also very important.
And what,
so when you say no trans fat, it works better. So trans fat free, people don't understand.
right.
So many of those things are very important in terms of how you communicate as a brand.
But is this, I mean, you told me that you are a data driven company completely. Is this the data you picked up from what's happening with the youth?
Yeah.
Because I personally feel that everyone today is very health conscious. They are moving towards it. Our country is moving. You see the kind of ecosystems. There's so much conversation on health, diets. Some are fads, I agree, but there is still conversation, and somebody gets influenced by this conversation, and that conversation in a society level shapes culture, shapes subculture, you know, and that's what we experience in a cafe like this.
So we rather advocate that. And that way, see, many of these things are, while they, so we had some great social media influencers who tried to do that last year. And I don't want to name them because this is going on social media. But the point is, eventually they ended up launching their own whey protein and they lost their authenticity around it.
Right.
So we need advocates for this who are not commercial. And that is when the movement will shift further. Because right now it is just a 2-3% consumer base in India. And it's not growing beyond it for the last decade. Like we've seen that with A2 milk as well. Where the total A2 milk sold in the any city, what we are tracking is the same for the last decade. It's not grown. Why? Because it was just clever marketing. Because buffalo milk is naturally A2 and it has existed in India, and it is still over 50% of what is sold in India.
But they changed packaging, right? And that appealed.
So now that's happened a decade later to what A2 brands launched as.
Right.
So that's why, you know, many trends, how they mature is something that we need to see. We don't necessarily need to be first all the time. We need to adopt and create value for a consumer where the consumer keeps coming back again and again. And that's why we keep mapping all of these trends. We advocate for what is better. And what we see is that transitions work better than evolution. Like evolutions work better than revolutions. Whenever there has been a revolution, it has fallen back again, which we see with so many of these movements around us. So that's why we have to be aware of the Indian ecosystem as well, and then take steps which are incrementally better.
So if you are on a calorie conscious diet, which Chitale product would you eat?
So Binge Bar would be top. We have no added sugar Kaju Katli. We have no added sugar Gulab Jam. We have no added sugar Son Papdi. So the strawberry Son Papdi lately that we make is a no added sugar one, and it's one of our best selling variants. So that again was an offshoot in our own data which we saw recently. So that way people are okay with it. So that's why the flavoring and all
I
of
had
it also
no
matters.
idea you had strawberry flavored Kaju Katli, which was no
Strawberry
sugar.
flavored Son Papdi.
Son Papdi, sorry.
Yes.
No added sugar.
No added sugar.
And available on fast copy.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think that's something which the younger generation, and I don't want to make it generational, I think people who are just conscious will definitely adapt to, because if the taste is consistent, I think you all have scored there completely and maintained.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, there are other aspects that also matter, right? Like how well is your ecosystem being taken care of? is a sustainability measure. So nobody talks about it, but it is equal as important as sustainability on the optics side. Like, you can have solar power and then you cannot pay your distributors or farmers, then that's not a sustainable thing to do. So that's why collective capitalism in India is very, very underrated but very important, because when the ecosystem thrives, that is when a business thrives. So if we don't remain conscious as businesses, then it is very difficult to grow. So that's why that value system is very difficult to shake off by some external elements. When that channel adopts something, it flies off. So the channel to adopt is not happening. That critical mass will come in, say, maybe next decade. The middle of the next decade is what my hope is at this moment.
Well, that is a interesting insight. I personally wanted to talk about this whole health and mithai because, it is so personal to so many people that people avoid mithai when they are, exercising or whatever. But I think if one can meet at a good point where it is a healthier option compared to anything else, I think that's a great thing for all Chitale customers for sure. That there's rest assured that there's quality, there is the taste, and now you can eat it guilt free, so to speak. Any more? Yes.
So now you have two options. One is your strawberry flavored, no added sugar, soap papdi and normal. How do you market that? Because if I want to buy one soap papdi packet, you have two options. One is the normal one and the other one is no added sugar. So how do you market the benefits of no added sugar when you already have a product?
See, so that is where categories become very important. Now, category, you can either look at it from a product category, that how big is Son Papdi as a market. So probably this month, all of India will consume over 15,000 crores worth of Son Papdi. Because we've seen those memes that Son Papdi comes from one house to another to third and comes back again. But that is the dynamics of it. Now, in that, how much is the health category and how much is the regular category? And what are the price points? Because anything healthy and good quality is going to cost more money. So that always remains a smaller spectrum. So creating that choice and communicating that on the packet is more important right now. If I was to give you a comparison, this is like creating choices between electric vehicles and petrol or diesel vehicles or IC engines. The thing is that a consumer now, especially as the price of electric vehicles is going down, there are consumer brands in India which are offering electric cars and IC cars at the same price. Now it is a choice that, what do I want? I possibly want a more sustainable mechanism, or I want to show off my green number plate, or I want a car which is going to be a mile muncher and I know that there is no charging infrastructure. Is a choice that the consumer has. So empowering that choice is what brands should be doing, and that is what we are doing. We are not hard selling that, this is what you should buy and this is not what you should buy. Because why should we cannibalize a market that exists?
Saying that since this is a no added sugar product, are you indirectly, unintentionally decreasing the value of something which has sugar in it because you are advocating no sugar product, right? Like, what is the benefit of it?
I don't think so that tipping point has come. So it's too small a market. So what rather is happening right now is that a consumer who's going to come to my store and buy 3 packets of in his basket is going to buy one more packet saying that I bought 3 things which I feel guilty about, one thing is now healthy as well, so we can have a choice around it. So that's why our basket size actually goes up. So it's not yet cannibalizing each other.
That's an important distinction. Yeah. But culturally, how is Chitale positioning itself in Pune? This is apart from product push, like, are you all doing anything? You said you're sponsoring events and, thought leadership on your relationship with Pune. Chitale was born here. What all, do you all do activities from a more cultural aspect? Or is it mainly to, being associated with forums, with events, with communication, so to speak?
So what we've taken as a conscious call as a brand is that, we've stayed consciously away from certain things cultural, because many things cultural are literally highly politicized, and now there is a color to it as well. So our consumer does not come with the same preference. We can have people with different ideologies coming in and buying our products. So why do we take one bet and not take the other and try to polarize our consumer is something that we have consciously stayed away from. And that's why what we focused on is that where are the avenues where foods can be consumed. So now mobility is becoming a big factor for us. So Mumbai Metro we have now 12 to 13 outlets. Pune Metro we have vending machines outlets. Nagpur, Bangalore, Indore we are coming up with metro as a form of mass urban transport where people will consume food. So how are we available there?
Right.
Along with that, what do we create available there? Now,
Because brands usually always want recall, and recall always happens through advertising, through being associated with.
but that is
you know,
where sports
cultural
is
aspects.
becoming very important. So if you see our festive season ads or communications, they are always around the family aspect of it. Because what we consider Chitale is a family brand. We are a family business, we are a family brand. We are not wanting to position ourselves as a Chakna brand at all. So that's why what do we communicate there is always about the family ecosystem and the idea of shared consumption, collaboration, getting together and celebration. So that's one aspect of it.
Right.
The second, where we go into the salty snacks category, we are using sports as an anchor, which is where Sachin Tendulkar as a brand ambassador comes in, our association with Mumbai Indians comes in, or our association with various marathons, various sporting events, the football team, the basketball teams, the many other avenues where we own properties and create visibility there, because we want sports as an anchor for snack consumption.
Right.
That is the second point that we use as a marketing tool particularly. And the third would be more on the nation building side, because we've been around pre-independence, we are committed to this nation, and that way the commitment to the nation is irrespective of the ideologies, because that is what we want to do as a building legacy as well. So right from the farmer to the fork, whoever it is in our ecosystem, how are we empowering them and creating value is the third aspect that we focus on.
Right. I think sport and snack. Is it a strategic thing, or is it something which is your personal extension? Because it's an interesting combination.
It is a strategic thing, and snacking happens only in two avenues, as I said. I must apologize for using the word again and again, but there is either the Chakna category or there is the sporting category. So people consume snacks either during the watching of sports and collaborative movement around it, or in the bars after a certain period of time. So that bar food, which is a very different category. So we don't have a pub culture in India. We have a very distinct bar culture where that ingredient quality or the quality of the brand that comes in as a Chakana doesn't matter yet in India. It's now doing very well in the UK, for example, where the bar culture is adopted to quality, but it's not matured in India. So do we want to cater there? Because we can't deliver a Chitale quality product there, because the consumer doesn't expect a Chitale quality product. So we don't play that market. But can we be in the sports market? We can definitely be there. And with the per capita income increasing, the consumption of sports is only bound to go up.
Right.
And what we've seen is that anchor also helps us move into other Commonwealth countries better, because many of them end up playing cricket, many of them end up doing some other sports. And any of those anchors are a far better place to market your brand, because those people who are into sports are usually always spending a little more in terms of their lifestyle for the better things in life. So those are the consumers we want to target, and that's how it becomes a selective call of where do we place ourselves strategically.
Interesting. Any more questions? Oh, there are so many. Yeah, sure.
So when you take Chitale brand in another country, so culture as a factor, like their culture as a factor, does that affect, and how do you deal with it?
No, it does. And see, there's this common saying that when in Rome, do as the Romans. So you must adopt and respect their culture. Now, if you want to sell Bakarwadi in Germany, we have to be anchored around Oktoberfest, otherwise it's not going to work. Or say UK market, it is the pub culture. So where do snacks sell the most? It is in the pubs. So how are we present in the bigger pubs is what we use as a target market. Same happens with Australia, where the sporting heritage of that country is so big that those avenues become important. Similarly, in the US, we have a different strategy, or what we are doing with the Middle East is very different. So that's why what anchors that part of the region is very important, and you have to use those anchors to create your space. So that's a strategy I rather like, rather than trying to impose a strategy that we have a singular idea and that needs to be applied universally across the world. So that singular idea is quality. We deliver quality is the only singularity we want to have. So I think, yes.
Firstly, very well articulated.
Thank you.
I can see that Chitale legacy is in good hands. We are from the older generation.
Yes.
And for us, Chitale is like quality. That is the culture. Chitale and quality go together. We blindly buy goods from Chitale and sell it for sales. Their quality are synonymous. So while you are expanding, you are going into so many businesses. How are you ensuring that quality is maintained throughout in all products as you expand? Or is it now part of the process and you are quite comfortable with the whole process change?
Well, I think it's cultural firstly, because it is a big anchor on how the company's grown. So it started with my great grandfather, that my grandfather saying that the day you want to add water to milk, you should stop doing the business. So I think that resonates in how we grew as a company, that we have been obsessed with the idea that what do we deliver to our consumer. I think what has happened over a period of time is that it has now been institutionalized, where it is not a person specific activity, but anybody who comes into the company gets inducted with those ethos in their mind. And it's not simply about the marketing, but it is also about the SOPs and the processes, where something should not be missed is part of a SOP. So weighing down on the system and trusting the system and not the individual is a transition we had to make. And for that we ended up hiring great experts from some other companies which were bigger than us. So we have people in our quality team who worked with McDonald's or who worked with Coke. And our idea was the same, that we need to be as equally competent in terms of quality assurance when an audit happens as all of these companies would be. Because if we don't have that quality assurance measure, we'll never be able to be a genuine Indian multinational. And when these supermarkets from abroad come and audit us, they come and inspect us, they are assured of that quality, which is why we are able to make a space there. So that's why we are betting heavily on that, and we have now institutionalized where we are compliant with the best global standards. So that's why it becomes a lot more easier now, because that is how the organization functions predominantly. It is at a process level.
Anyone? Any questions? So lastly, we wanted to talk about Jalsa. Today's collaboration is around Jalsa. So before we talk about Jalsa, I think one point which I wanted to talk about, which you mentioned, that when you go to Istanbul or Turkey, wherever, like there's always a local sweet which gets popular and people consume it with pride, correct? Do you think that now cafes are going to become a very important part, where you can integrate a mithai or something which resonates city level and becomes a very good integration? And especially because coffee culture is expanding, you will see more and more of these cafes. The younger generation will hang out here. What are your thoughts on that? Is that something which you see can grow?
So
can mithais replace cookies in a healthy way?
I consider myself to be an ambassador of laddu diplomacy, and that is my job now, because I travel maybe about 120 days a year outside, and my job is not to go and tell you how great my company is or what we are doing or etc. It is about marketing the culture of India. And that way, when I look at what is going to enable India to be a superpower status, say China has the industrial might, America has the military might, Germany, which 2 centuries ago had the technology and the industrial might again. What will India's calling be? And I believe that is going to be culture. And that way, creating soft power, which the Koreans have done very well, the Japanese have done very well, the Italians and the French have done very well. I think India have to rely on that, and that is where I think the culture being exported is going to be very important. Because as we say, the way to a person's heart is through the stomach. So how do we enable the stomach to be a power factor where we choose peace? Because as a country, we are a peace-loving country.
Right.
So we food and culture and sweets naturally are going to be an enabler for it.
Right.
And that's why I don't think so it is necessarily one brand trying to do it, but it is going to be multiple anchors around it. And these anchors, because they come in with culture and with emotion, are far more stronger in terms of their roots than what could be just a pure tactical commercial move.
Right.
And that is why I firmly believe that this food diplomacy aspect is going to be there. It is going to be a great factor to open new cultures and boundaries and actually create those anchors for people from outside to be attached to the city very well.
Right. So it is going to be
100%.
a great integration, because today what we are doing, and this is for everyone, Chitale has launched a Jalsa range called a Jalsa Mithai. You can talk more about it, but we are pairing it with our specialty coffee. So you all can taste it, pair it with the different. We have this 10 card which has all the pairings, the notes of coffee and the notes of the barfi which is there. So you all can try that, and it is we also have a Diwali hamper. It's right here. People can buy it. And more on Jalsa quickly as we wrap up this conversation.
Yes. So what we've witnessed as a company over the last decade is that we've achieved a huge scale, but then sometimes we lack in customization or the ability to be very personal with our connect. So how could we improve that was a problem statement that we were trying to address, and also create a opportunity for a consumer to experience our stores differently. And that is where the idea of premium, gourmet, handmade mithai came into the picture, because we were always happy saying we do modak at 1000 kgs an hour, kaju katli at 2000 kgs an hour, and so many things. But what is the idea of something made personal, intimately, and for you, and made to order, not something that is off the shelf, but something that is designed with the order in mind, is where the business avenue came into the picture. And then because it is an occasion, because it is a gifting activity, and where there is an intent that what I gift is something that reflects how I am as a person, and what I gift also reflects how I want the person receiving the gift to feel about it. So how do we create that sense of speciality is where the Jalsa range was created.
Right.
I think we have some fantastic Instagrammable and yet flavorful products available in it. The packaging is also very different, and there is a sense of occasion that will be very good in enhancing the gifting opportunity that comes into it. So how do we create that is what how Jalsa was birthed. I think we have a brilliant team that was able to curate this.
Right.
They are the ones who've driven this.
Right.
And I think the part of institutionalizing is that we have professionals smarter than me running the business, and I get to talk. And that's what I'm doing today. So I am hopeful that all of you get to try it, and it's about collaboration.
Fantastic. I think I'm looking forward to tasting it. But before we conclude, I just want to understand, how is Indraneel's day in his life? What do you do apart from work? I have not seen any podcast which has not covered this. Like nobody's asked you this question. Do you read books firstly?
Yeah, I mean that's probably one of my important solace in life, because otherwise, see, my job is now a lot more outside facing. It's a lot about interaction, and as I say, as an ambassador of the business, I have to meet and talk all the time. So it becomes very important that you create a discipline around it, because interactions can be highly engaging but draining as well.
Right.
So that's where I think discipline has helped. So I like sleeping early, I like waking up early. So I'm usually up at around 4:45 in the morning. I work out, I spend my time alone in terms of thinking how I want my day to be, and I'm quite structured till around lunchtime, by which my administrative tasks are done, and then it is all about engagement.
Right.
So there are many other activities that I end up doing, which are, say, investing in startups, working with other mentors. There are certain social roles that I take responsibility for. Say, be it the Chamber of Commerce, I'm on the board of I Am Jammu, which from a nation integration part is very important part for me. Then some other roles which include the Pune Public Policy Festival, because we want Pune to be a point of advocacy in terms of how many policies that affect the citizens are shaped.
Right.
So giving time to all of it, and that thought leadership is where I spend more time.
Right.
And then I end up meeting people like you who are thought provoking in by nature. So that way, that definitely helps me think more.
Do you like coffee?
Of course.
So in Bookbar, we have this concept called as pause with purpose. So I think we would expect you sometimes, when you decide to pause with purpose, to come here and have more coffee.
I'm hoping so.
And see you around with maybe, that would be a sight, right? You sitting in a corner reading a book. I don't think anyone would have seen you that way outside of your home, right? So I think that would be a great thing to have you.
Mostly my photos in the plane. So this year I have taken probably close to 90 flights. And that's why many of my photographs this year have been inside the planes. It's always been with a book or a Kindle. So that way, one of our social media members has compiled it that, how many books have I read. So it's been an interesting thing. So I would like to do it in person and not on planes now.
Yeah, I think that would be...
So that's more important.
Great. I think we have come to the conclusion of this conversation. Anyone, any other questions?
Any of your book recommendations on business or brand?
Well, so currently I'm reading a book which is called 38 Letters by Rockefeller to his son. And it's a very intense book. So I have not been able to finish it in one go. And the other book that I am reading in parallel is AI Snake, which is about just the way how AI is going to sneak through many of the things around us, because it's wiggling, right? It's not a clear straight line. So how do we make sense of it as business owners is the other thing. So the Rockefeller book has been very interesting simply because it is about the passing of baton between two generations, whereas a business, Rockefellers are probably somebody I respect genuinely for how they built America. So the whole idea of the American dream was, he was one of the architects of it, and how does he look at the era after his is what is a perspective that I am realizing reading those letters. So that's something that is currently engaged for me.
Excellent. Cool. I think let's wrap up.
Thanks.
Thanks, Indraneel. I think
Glad I could be here.
couldn't have had a better first episode of Bookbar Locals, and couldn't have had a better audience. Most of all of you family, and we
Yes.
know each other. And I hope that you will keep on championing the change, not just for the city, but your ambitions for the country, as a India for the world, so to speak, made in India for the world. That kind of positioning with all the products, and Chitale will always be a part of the legacy for every family. It will be handed over, like how Rockefellers handed over from one generation to the other. I think the information and the trust will definitely move from one family to the other, from one friend to the other, from one institution to the other.
Absolutely.
And we would love to see you
I
at
look
Bookbar
forward
again.
and I think I would love to come here and read something fiction and not business. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.